What if I told you that receiving just $10 in your uncle's will could make you richer than your wildest dreams? And what if that same $10 turned your family's cruelest laughter into their worst nightmare? This is the story of how I went from family disappointment to ultimate vindication. And it all started with the most humiliating moment of my life. Picture this: you're sitting in a lawyer's office, surrounded by relatives who've always treated you like dirt. Your wealthy uncle just died, and everyone's waiting to see who gets what. Then your name is called. To my niece, Dana Mitchell, I leave the sum of $10. The room explodes in laughter. Your cousin literally slaps his knee. Your aunt smirks like she just won the lottery. And you want to disappear into the floor. But here's the thing about my Uncle Robert. He was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Before we dive into this absolutely wild story of family betrayal turned sweet justice, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and smash that subscribe button, because trust me, you're going to want to hear how this ends. My name is Dana Mitchell, and I was born into money, but not the kind that buys you respect, the kind that comes with expectations. The Mitchell family empire was built on real estate, stretching across New England like a golden web of power and prestige. There was just one problem: I didn't want any of it. While my cousins Jason and Heather were studying business and finance, preparing to inherit their slice of the empire, I was behind a camera lens, chasing light and shadow, trying to capture truth in a world obsessed with appearances. My family saw this as, well, let's just say, Aunt Margaret put it best: photography is a hobby, Dana, not a profession. But Uncle Robert, he was different. Uncle Robert was the family patriarch, the man who doubled our grandfather's fortune and commanded respect from every Mitchell alive. He was also the only person who seemed to understand that I wasn't broken. I was just different. I'll never forget the day he gave me my first camera at 12 years old. His blue eyes twinkled as he said, "Some people see the world in dollars and cents. But you, my dear, you see the world through frames and moments. Never lose that." For 15 years, he was my quiet champion, never financially supporting my career, which I was actually proud of, but always checking in, always caring. I even spotted him at my gallery showings sometimes, though he'd disappear before I could approach him. Our last conversation happened just 3 weeks before he died. His voice sounded tired, but he told me something I'll never forget. "I saw your exhibition last month. Your work has matured beautifully. True wealth isn't what you own, but who you are. Remember that." At the time, I thought he was just being philosophical. Now I realize he was preparing me. The call came on a rainy Thursday morning. Uncle Robert had passed away peacefully in his sleep at 72. The will reading was scheduled for the following week. I almost didn't go. What was the point? I had no expectations of inheriting anything significant. Maybe a book, maybe one of his cameras, just something to remember him by. I had no idea I was walking into the most humiliating and ultimately life-changing day of my existence. The law firm occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming Boston skyscraper. I felt underdressed the moment I stepped into that marble lobby. My simple black dress looked pitiful next to Aunt Margaret's designer suit and Heather's perfect ensemble. When I entered the conference room, the family was already there, clustered in their usual hierarchies of power and influence. No one acknowledged my arrival except Heather, who gave me a tight, patronizing smile. I took a seat at the far end of the table and tried to make myself invisible. At exactly 10 a.m., Mr. Peterson, the family lawyer, entered with his leather portfolio and solemn expression. The will reading began like clockwork. Aunt Margaret got the Cape Cod summer house worth millions. Jason received Uncle Robert's vintage car collection. Heather inherited the priceless art collection. Various relatives got generous bequests in the thousands. Then came my turn. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat and looked directly at me. "To my niece, Dana Mitchell, I leave the sum of $10. The silence was deafening. Then someone snickered. The snicker became a chuckle. The chuckle spread around the table until most of my relatives were laughing openly. $10, Jason exclaimed, not bothering to hide his amusement. What are you going to do with that fortune, Dana? Buy yourself a fancy coffee. Even Heather, who usually had some decency, was suppressing a smile. But Aunt Margaret, she didn't laugh. She just looked at me with this mixture of pity and vindication, like she'd been proven right about everything. Well, Dana, perhaps this will help you understand the value of practical career choices. I wanted to die. Right there, in that mahogany-paneled room, I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. As the family filed out, still chuckling about my inheritance, Mr. Peterson approached me quietly. Miss Mitchell, there are some additional papers you need to sign. It may take some time. My relatives were eager to leave, probably to celebrate their windfalls, so they didn't stick around. Good thing, because what happened next would have given Aunt Margaret a heart attack. Once we were alone, Mr. Peterson's entire demeanor changed. The solemn mask fell away, replaced by something that looked almost like anticipation. Please, come back to the conference room, he said, gesturing to the head of the table, Uncle Robert's symbolic position. It's quite appropriate, I assure you. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name, written in Uncle Robert's distinctive handwriting. Your uncle was diagnosed with terminal cancer 8 months ago, Mr. Peterson explained gently. He chose to keep this private. He used his remaining time to construct what I believe is the most carefully planned inheritance I've ever witnessed. With trembling fingers, I broke the wax seal and began to read. My dearest Dana, if you're reading this, then the rather theatrical first act of my will reading has concluded. I imagine you're feeling hurt, confused, and probably quite angry with me right now. For that, I am truly sorry. The public bequest of $10 was a necessary deception. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper. You are, in fact, the primary beneficiary of my estate. The public bequests your family received today represent less than 20% of my total assets. The remaining 80%, approximately $340 million, along with my personal properties, my majority stake in the Mitchell Group, and various other holdings, are now yours. I had to read that sentence 3 times before it sank in. $340 million, majority ownership of the Mitchell Group, everything. But the letter wasn't finished revealing its secrets. The next paragraph made me gasp out loud. What you might not know is who I really am, or was. The name Patrick Sullivan is probably unfamiliar to you. It was my pseudonym, under which I purchased your work from galleries across the country. Every major sale you've made since you began showing professionally, I was your buyer. Patrick Sullivan, my mysterious collector, the one who'd been supporting my career for years. It was Uncle Robert. I have a private gallery in my Beacon Hill home, filled with your photographs. I didn't do this out of pity or charity. I did it because your work moves me. There is truth in your photographs, Dana. Never doubt their value or yours. The letter went on to explain Uncle Robert's brilliant strategy. First, he needed to protect me. If the family had known I was inheriting everything, they would have immediately tried to influence me, control me, or challenge the will. Second, he wanted me to see their true colors. No masks, no pretense, just their raw reactions when they thought there would be no consequences. Information is power, Dana. Now you know exactly who they are. The conditions of my inheritance were simple. Continue photography for at least 10 years, take an active interest in the Mitchell Foundation, and be wise about who I trust. And that $10, it had a special meaning too. The $10, by the way, was the exact amount my father gave me when I told him I wanted to start my own company instead of working for his. He said it would be all I'd ever get from him. It was both a punishment and the best gift he ever gave me. Frame the check instead of cashing it. Let it remind you that true worth isn't counted in dollars. Mr. Peterson then took me to Uncle Robert's hidden Beacon Hill penthouse, a space the family didn't even know existed. When I walked in, I nearly collapsed. Every wall was covered with my photographs, beautifully framed, professionally lit, arranged chronologically from my earliest student work to my most recent series. It was like walking through a museum dedicated to my artistic journey. "He collected everything," I whispered, moving from image to image in wonder. Uncle Robert had been my anonymous patron, my secret champion, my invisible supporter for years, and I'd never known. When the SEC filings became public 6 months later, revealing that I now owned the majority of the Mitchell Group, the family's reaction was absolutely priceless. Aunt Margaret was the first to call, her voice strained with forced pleasantness. "Dana, darling, we need to talk. There seems to have been some confusion about Robert's intentions." "No confusion, Aunt Margaret," I replied calmly. "His intentions were perfectly clear." Jason tried intimidation. "You're a photographer, Dana, not a businesswoman. You need someone with experience to help manage the Mitchell Group." "And yet Uncle Robert chose me," I replied. "Perhaps he saw something in my perspective that he found valuable." "Heather took the guilt route. I was jealous of you. You had the courage to follow your passion while I just did what was expected." But here's the thing. I didn't use my newfound wealth for revenge. Instead, I honored Uncle Robert's true vision. I created the Dana Mitchell Gallery, showcasing emerging photographers who, like me, had talent but lacked connections. I restructured the Mitchell Foundation to support arts education in underserved communities. I used my resources to create opportunities, not destroy people. The most amazing discovery came a year later when I found Uncle Robert's own photographs hidden in his penthouse, remarkable black and white images of Boston that revealed he'd been an artist himself, just one who'd chosen a different path. You see, what Uncle Robert gave me wasn't just money. It was something far more valuable: the freedom to be authentically myself without compromise. He taught me that true wealth isn't about what you own. It's about who you are and what you create with the opportunities you're given. That $10 check, it hangs framed in my studio now, just like Uncle Robert suggested, right next to a photo I took of him years ago at a family gathering, where he's gazing out a window with that thoughtful, slightly sad expression I never understood until now. He was living a divided life, part expectation, part secret passion, but his final act bridged those worlds, giving me the chance to live fully integrated, wealthy but not defined by wealth, a Mitchell but entirely myself. So what would you do if you suddenly inherited millions? Would you stay true to yourself, or would the money change you? The real test isn't how you handle being poor, it's how you handle being rich. It's whether you use your resources to build up or tear down, to create opportunities or settle scores. Uncle Robert's greatest gift wasn't the $340 million. It was showing me that authentic success means staying true to your values, no matter what your bank account says. And sometimes, the most generous inheritance comes disguised as the cruelest insult. If this story of family betrayal turned sweet justice resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment below about what you'd do with an unexpected inheritance. I read every single one. And hey, if you know someone who needs a reminder that their worth isn't measured in dollars, share this video with them. Trust me, they'll thank you for it. Thanks for joining me on this wild journey, and remember, your value isn't counted in your bank account. It's counted in the authentic life you choose to live.